Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 29th of December. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. The search for the missing AirAsia passenger jet resumed at first light today after the plane carrying more than 160 people vanished from radar early Sunday. Italy says 192 of the nearly 500 people on the burning Italian-flagged ferry in the Adriatic Sea have been rescued. However, hundreds more remain trapped on board the stricken vessel. Plus, South Korea, the United States and Japan will have signed a trilateral intelligence sharing agreement today to better cope with North Korea's increasing military threats. But our top story this morning, the search for the missing AirAsia flight that vanished with 162 people on board resumed a couple of hours ago. The Airbus flight QZ8501 took off from Indonesia for Singapore early Sunday morning, but lost all contact with air traffic control during bad weather over the Java Sea. Connie Lee starts us off.
Search operations begun again at the break of light on Monday for any sign of missing AirAsia flight 8501. Indonesia's National Rescue Agency says 7 ships and 2 helicopters are conducting search operations in the area where the plane is thought to have gone down. The search had to be called off on Sunday as night fell. At a news conference, AirAsia's chief executive said the plane disappeared in bad weather, but said no conclusion can be made yet as to what happened.
We're very devastated by what's happened. It's unbelievable, but we do not know what's happened yet. The weather conditions were not good, but further than that, we don't really want to speculate anything more.
Air traffic control officials say the plane went missing Sunday at 7:24 a.m. local time after one of the pilots had requested to fly at a higher altitude to avoid storm clouds. The AirAsia flight was flying from the Indonesian city of Surabaya to Singapore when it went missing 40 minutes into flight above the Java Sea with 162 passengers on board. Of the people on board, 155 of them are Indonesian, with 1 British, Malaysian, and Singaporean passenger, and 3 people from Korea. According to Korea's foreign ministry, the Korean nationals are a couple in their 30s and their 11-month-old daughter. At a makeshift crisis center in Indonesia's Surabaya airport, more than 100 distraught relatives wait for news of their loved ones.
We are very surprised and very sad. Our grandchild was going to Singapore for a holiday, but the accident happened.
AirAsia is a Malaysia-based budget airline that travels to 88 destinations, mostly in Southeast Asia. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Now, South Korea, the United States and Japan have signed a trilateral intelligence sharing agreement to better cope with North Korea's increasing nuclear and missile threats. Seoul's defense ministry says that South Korea will not share its most sensitive intelligence with Tokyo. A ministry official added that the same arrangement is in place between Washington and Tokyo. Under the pact, South Korea and Japan will not directly share military information either, but will use the US as a kind of go-between. The deal is expected to strengthen the trilateral security cooperation that has dried up in recent years due to territorial and historical disputes between South Korea and Japan. Russia's former ambassador to North Korea has been named as Moscow's new ambassador to South Korea. Russian news agency Interfax reports that Russian President Vladimir Putin has officially appointed that man there, Alexander Timonin, to serve as Russia's top envoy in Seoul. This marks the first time a country has ever sent the same diplomat to be ambassador to South Korea after they served in Pyongyang. Timonin, who replaces Konstantin Nyukov, has experience fostering trilateral cooperation between the two Koreas and Russia. He also previously worked at the Russian embassy here in Seoul. Now, South Korea's foreign ministry, which approved the appointment, says Timonin will likely start his new role next month. Japanese Vice Foreign Minister Akitaka Saiki is in Seoul on this Monday for talks with his South Korean counterpart Jo Tae-yong. Seoul's foreign ministry says the two diplomats are going to discuss pending issues, including Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. This is the issue that the two sides have been unable to resolve, even after holding 5 rounds of high-level talks, vice-ministerial level talks. South Korea wants a sincere apology from Japan and compensation for the now very elderly victims. Japan, however, claims the issue was resolved through a treaty signed back in 1965. The Japanese minister is also expected to express hopes for a summit between their two leaders in the near future. Now, rescue operations are continuing in less than favourable conditions off the coast of Greece as hundreds of passengers remain trapped on board a burning ferry. For more details on this, let's turn to our Son Jung-in at the News Centre. Good morning, Jung-in.
Good morning, Mark.
So earlier we heard that Coast Guard officials were battling bad weather and high winds and waves in the area. They're trying to rescue people. Obviously, what's the latest?
Well, Italian and Greek helicopter crew members are continuing rescue operations to airlift passengers of the burning ferry adrift in the Adriatic Sea and transferring them to a nearby vessel. The Italian Coast Guard said one passenger had died after jumping off the ferry to try to escape the fire, and there are reports that 4 other people were injured among 478 passengers and crew. According to the Italian Navy, which is leading the search and rescue operations, 190 people had been rescued, while over 280 are still on board, mostly gathered on the upper deck, desperately waiting to be rescued. Officials said most of the passengers were Greek, but the passenger list included names from several other countries, including Germany, Italy, Austria, Turkey, France, and the Netherlands. The blaze is believed to have broken out early Sunday morning in the lower deck garage of the vessel.
Yeah, and judging by the pictures there, it really must be a race against time to rescue people off that ferry. And given that it's the middle of the night over there in Europe, it must be a very tense situation. Of course, we'll have more updates on that story from you during our next newscast. But now let's go over to Afghanistan, where a ceremony was held on Sunday marking the official end to military combat operations there.
That's right, Mark. The longest war in American history has now finally come to an end. The U.S.-led coalition in Afghanistan formally concluded its mission more than 13 years after American troops went to fight in the country following the September 11, 2001 terror attacks. The U.S. spent more than $1 trillion there, launching airstrikes against Osama bin Laden's al-Qaeda and their Taliban protectors. The U.S. and its NATO allies held a ceremony at their military headquarters in Kabul on Sunday, but details were withheld until the last moment due to fear the insurgents might attempt an attack.
And Jung-in, we hear that President Barack Obama also issued a statement hailing the end of U.S. military operations there.
Right. Obama, who is currently on vacation, said the international effort in Afghanistan had resulted in destroying al-Qaeda's core leadership and brought justice to Osama bin Laden. He also honored more than 2,200 U.S. servicemen and women who died in the war. About 13,500 foreign troops, mostly Americans, will remain in Afghanistan, helping train local security forces and assisting them in counter-terrorism operations.
Well, thank you very much, Jung-in, for your updates, and we'll see you back again at noon Korea time.
Said that a team of South Korea.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers $15 billion. Now, the Korean government is pressing ahead with its deregulation drive as it looks to give the local economy a much-needed jolt in the arm. Officials from the public and private sectors met on Sunday in Seoul, where they assessed which regulations should stay and which should go. For more on what turned out to be quite a productive meeting, our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
With growing concerns over prolonged sluggish domestic demand and uncertainties stemming from the slowing global recovery, the Korean government decided to speed up its plans to strip away excessive red tape that many say is strangling the country's economic potential. Among the more than 150 rules economic organizations have suggested be scrapped, the government agreed on Sunday to fully remove or amend around 3/4 of them. Included was the expansion of the number of goods exempted from radiation tests and permission to store public records electronically. The meeting was also an opportunity for firms and private institutes to urge government agencies to review their regulative policies. For example, providers of telecommunications services asked ministries to scrap regulations that require government approval before raising the price of mobile services. In response, the Science and ICT Ministry said it would come up with measures sometime early next year to address the inconvenience while fostering healthy competition among local providers. Proposals left for further review were mainly related to easing labor restrictions, including the removal of company quotas on hiring employees with disabilities. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Now, Korea, which is one of the most wired countries in the world, is set to deploy a new mobile network service this year and continue rolling it out throughout next year. The country's largest telecommunications operators, SK Telecom and KT Corporation, say they are commercializing an ultra-high-speed 3-band LTE-A service. And with this service, users will be able to download a movie in less than 30 seconds. That's 4 times faster than the existing long-term evolution service that a great many people here in Korea use. However, while the service is in its initial stages, it's only going to be available to people with a Samsung Galaxy Note 4 device and only in certain parts of the country where at least 3 audio frequencies are available. The operators say they will be working on expanding availability throughout next year. The Korean government has confirmed that the nation will launch 2 indigenously developed satellites by the year 2020. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future says the 500-kilogram satellites will be developed in conjunction with the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, the Korea Aerospace Research Institute and a number of private industry partners. Now, medium-sized satellites are less expensive to develop than multi-purpose satellites, and there is growing international demand for them, particularly from developing countries around the world. The government says it plans to pump over $200 million into this project to try and help grow the nation's space industry. And experts say the project will provide a great boost to the Korean space industry as a whole and also the commercialization of aerospace technology here in Korea. And there are only a few more days left of 2014, and it's the time of the year when people get ready to celebrate the coming of the new year, but not everyone has the privilege to celebrate, really. Soldiers serving on the front lines here in Korea especially cannot let down their guard, not even for a split second, with the tension on the border up there. But a cutting-edge surveillance system implemented recently has kind of lessened the burden on them a bit. Our Paulie reports.
광망 사전일 때 상황 발생 전원 투입.
As soon as irregular movements are detected near the central front line, every soldier in the unit is dispatched to their respective positions. Soldiers stand at the ready while receiving information on an enemy's location from the control room. This is a General Outpost, or GOP scientific guard system, which was implemented early this year. The cutting-edge cameras survey the area around the clock and sound an alarm when even the slightest movement near the ceasefire line is detected. The system has taken off some of the burden on soldiers and enabled the military to reinforce its operational capabilities.
Members in our unit are battling out bone-chilling cold weather while paying full attention to the GOP security operation.
As part of the Defense Ministry's drive to reform military culture, soldiers serving in general units can now keep in touch with family and friends online. They can also use their spare time for self-improvement activities like learning a foreign language or reading books. The military plans to strengthen the GOP scientific guard system within all frontline units next year, so they are fully prepared for a possible enemy provocation while keeping the nation safe. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
Now, local researchers recently conducted an ecosystem analysis for the first time in the demilitarized zone off Korea's eastern coast. Over 150 species were found, including several endangered ones. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
In the no-man's zone of Korea's East Sea are numerous animals' footprints. Their owners, sea otters that are on the brink of extinction. Nearby, on rocky islands, are cormorants resting in harmony with nature. They're also on the endangered list. Underwater, there are even more rare species and plants, including the philosphatics and wattises. Neon damselfish, among other fish, also roam through the waters. In the past, it was impossible for researchers to take samples in the demilitarized zone, as there are lost mines hidden in numerous areas. But with the help of Korea's Ministry of National Defense, it became all possible for researchers to conduct an ecosystem analysis in the region. A total of 151 marine life were discovered, including 7 on the endangered species list. The Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries says they will continue their search to discover new species, as well as to preserve the ones that are endangered. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
SK Hynix is one of the key movers and shakers in the world's highly lucrative memory chip industry. But it was only a decade ago when it was a very different story, with the company teetering on the edge of going bankrupt, with little hope really of surviving that period. But for this week's Industry Insight, our Hwang Ji-ae tells us about what was and what still is one of the most remarkable turnarounds in Korea's business history.
For 3 straight quarters this year, SK Hynix reported over 1 trillion won, or roughly $900 million in operating profit. In the third quarter, it earned $30 for every $100 of sales, meaning it was more profitable than Apple in terms of operating profit margin. So what's driving the company's robust growth recently? Take a look. The memory chip industry is all about adding a ton of a memory storage onto a tiny semiconductor. That includes DRAM chips for computers and flash chips used in smartphones and digital cameras. So the name of the game is miniaturization technology and an efficient manufacturing process. And SK Hynix, the world's second largest chip maker, excels in reducing production costs.
Basically, DRAM is a kind of commodity. So just to be a low-cost producer is the most important thing. Basically, during the last around 30 years, Hynix, SK Hynix remained as a low-cost producer.
Industry experts say the company's survival instinct has led to engineering innovations that pushed production costs down.
When SK Hynix was going through hard times in the past, it wasn't able to invest in facilities, so it had to operate its factories with very little money. But it was back then when the company accumulated its know-how. So in terms of production efficiency, it has become the #1.
Established in 1983 as Hyundai Electronics, the company was pushed to the brink of collapse both in the wake of the 1997 Asian financial crisis and in the 2008 global financial crisis. The debt-laden company also suffered from years of a cutthroat game of slashing prices played out by more than 20 memory chip makers. In 2001, its creditors forced it into a debt workout program. The seemingly never-ending story of financial trouble ended when SK Group, one of Korea's 3 largest conglomerates, took it over in 2012 and renamed it SK Hynix. With the help of its new deep-pocketed parent, the company could aggressively invest in the latest production facilities as well as research, while the rest of the industry players were cutting back. Now the business environment for SK Hynix seems positive, with Samsung Electronics and Micron Technology of the U.S. remaining as the company's only rivals. The demand for memory chips is also growing thanks to the ever-evolving smartphone. Of course, a peaceful cohabitation by the 3 powers could end if the industry leader Samsung aggressively increases its market share, or if newcomers decide to pour in money to enter the market. For the foreseeable future, however, SK Hynix is poised to enjoy profits. Hwang Jie, ARIRANG News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2015 Asian Cup, which is set to kick off on January 9th in Australia. And as for the Korean national football team, arrived in Sydney, Australia on Saturday, there's a lot of work to be done for manager Uli Stilicke, including selecting his captain. That was by Swansea City midfielder Ki Sung-young being named the captain during the first few months under manager Uli Stilicke. That's not the case this time during the Asian Cup, as the 60-year-old manager has yet to select his captain in Australia. Of the 3 candidates at the moment are Koo Ja-cheol, the captain during the 2014 Brazil World Cup, Lee Chung-young, who has held his captain's armband before, and Ki Sung-young, who might continue his position as Stilicke's captain. And now moving over to golf this time, where Golf Week listed their top 10 LPGA stories of the year, and topping the list, well, Korean-American Michelle Wie. Now, despite being considered one of the biggest disappointments in women's golf at one point, Korean-American Michelle Wie had a breakout year in 2014 as she won the 2014 U.S. Women's Open. Her dramatic victory was listed as the top story of the year in Golf Week. Now, meanwhile, 17-year-old Lydia Ko's incredible rookie season was listed at number 3, while Christina Kim's dramatic win at the Lorena Ochoa Invitational was listed at number 4. And now from women's golf to men's golf in the PGA, where CBS Sport listed the top 5 young golfers who could shake up this sport in 2015. And at number 3, 23-year-old Do Seung-yeol. The 23-year-old who won the Zurich Classic in April and became the youngest Korean to win a PGA title was listed at number 3 as the article praises swings. Now, Do Seung-yeol, who has one of the prettiest golf swings in the sport, struggled a bit after his win in April, but at the young age of 23, he has plenty of room for improvements in the future. Meanwhile, at number 1 in the list was another 23-year-old in Tommy Fleetwood, an Englishman who had 6 top 5 finishes in the European Tour. And now finishing things off, if there's one athlete who especially enjoyed this past year, it's Victor An, aka An Hyun-soo. And over the weekend, Eurosport named him Russia's Athlete of the Year. Now, with Eurosport naming the top athletes of each European nations, 29-year-old Victor An was named Russia's Athlete of the Year after winning 3 gold medals at the Sochi Winter Games. Despite short track not being considered a popular sport in Russia before, the success of An led to a huge rise in popularity, as many young kids in the nation are showing interest in the sport. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Monday, everyone. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. The nation is looking very foggy and cloudy, and currently there are even regions such as Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island where it's raining or snowing. And we are also seeing high levels of fine dust particles from China that is being blown by the westerly moving winds, and we can expect about 3 or even 4 times higher levels than the normal, especially in the central region, including here in Seoul, which will then expand down to the southern regions by this evening. And looking at the numbers, we can expect about 2 to 5 degrees higher temperature readings compared to yesterday, leading us to relatively mild conditions across the nation. And now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak up to 7 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will top out to 9 and 11 degrees. And now moving over to other regions such as Jeju Island will get up to 10. Dokdo hits 8, while Mangungang is below freezing at -4 degrees. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Michelle, for the weather. And that is literally all we have for now. There are plenty more stories for you to check out online on our website. And we'll be back again at noon Korea time with our next newscast. Until then, goodbye.